So there you go. The judiciary is said to be the last hope for the common man. It is also said to be the most critical leg on which the tripod of democracy rests upon. And that's why we're taking a look at the role of democracy in Nigeria's process, especially from independence up to this moment. And we have with us this morning to help us see how well the judiciary has fared, Mr. Monday Ubani. He is a former second VP of MBA. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Good morning.
So just before we get into this, I'd like you to respond to, this issue, this talk about the 90 billion naira allegation, the FIRS saga, and especially this talk about the vice president saying he's ready to waive his immunity. What is your perspective on this?
My take is that we should place it in context. When he said he wants to waive his immunity, under what context? Because the position of the law as it is today is that the president, the vice president, the president, governor, deputy can be investigated. And so the issue of waiving immunity to be investigated is not there. He cannot in any way, say he's going to waive it, because the provision of the law is very supreme. Yeah.
So a lot of people have also asked, the vice president is a professor of law. He won't just make statements just out there. He must have thought this through, must have seen a possibility in this. So don't you think there's also that consideration?
Well, he says he wants a robust adjudication. So in case any person that is maligning his name thinks he cannot enter into the fray or be in court, he's saying, look, I am ready, and I will sue. And of course, the law says the vice president or the president can even sue in defamation. If you are liable, remember the notorious case of the state versus Atowankwo, where the Court of Appeal says you can criticize a president, you can criticize a governor. If he feels that he has been defamed, he has a right to go to court for libel. And so under that...
So he can actually sue?
He can sue, and that's why his lawyers have written. And that is a response. I hear that Vanguard has responded by apologizing, but Timmy Frank is still standing on his position that he has his facts.
So what do you think that does to his case then? In fact, according to that statement put out by the newspaper publisher, they said they have since discovered that the story lacks factual substance. And that's on the basis which they're apologizing and withdrawing that statement. So where does that leave Mr. Timmy Frank?
Well, what Prof was saying is that in such an allegation, it would have been better if you provide some basic evidence to say how there was this movement of money that I passed through account or passed through, hand, to actually let credence to the allegation that you were making. But if you just come and make a blanket allegation that there was this 90 million that was given to the vice president for the purpose of election, and there is no concrete evidence to show how that movement of that money was made and all that, it becomes, something any newspaper will not rely upon to publish. But they have published and they have apologized. But Frank is saying, look, I stand by that. Maybe when the matter goes to court, he will be able to provide that evidence. But I want to say this. What the vice president is doing is the most civilized approach, which is what we're advising other governors or the other people in public office to do. If you feel at any point in time that somebody has done something that is wrong, follow the due process, follow the law. Don't use instrument of state to intimidate, like some governors are doing. If you criticize them, they will arrange police to come and arrest you and put you in long detention. That is not what the vice president is doing. The vice president is saying, look, I am ready to follow the due process by suing and then even go to the court and give evidence, because whosoever alleges must prove. If he's suing, that means that he will enter into the witness box. But the point is that he cannot be compelled to enter into the witness box. He cannot be imprisoned for failure to attend court. But he can now say, look, I am suing and I want to prove that these allegations are very basically false. So in that may be the reason why he was saying waiving immunity. Of course, he was saying it in a general sense, not the sense that he can waive his immunity, because the IMB Securities PLC versus Tinubu says the governor, the deputy governor, the president, the vice cannot waive his immunity.
So we should just allow this follow the process?
Yeah, let it follow the normal process. I'm very happy with the vice president for the approach he has adopted. And I want him to see it to the end, to see that this particular allegation, his name is clear.
Okay, so as with this case and other cases, the bulk ends at the table of the judiciary, which is why we're here this morning to talk about how well we have fared in this, in this critical history of Nigeria. I'm sure you listened to one of the sound bites earlier where one of the speakers was saying lawyers are part of the problem in Nigeria. I'm sure you heard that. Do you agree with that?
Just like journalists are also part of the Nigerian problem.
So do you agree with that?
Well, I don't know the context under he was saying it.
He was talking about context of corruption in the judiciary and in other spheres of the country.
Well, unless one has specific evidence, but I know that this allegation that even the issue of slowness in delivery of justice, that lawyers sometimes come to court and then make unnecessary application for adjournment, even when the court itself is willing to go on. But some of the states are making amendment in their rules of court in order to penalize any lawyer that comes to court and is not ready to go on with his case or is causing unnecessary delay. There is this particular provision that allows judges now to punish lawyers by awarding, some cost against them. This is a way of taking care of that. The issue of corruption also is something that has to be, investigated. If a lawyer becomes a conduit through which money is actually taken to judges and all that, these are things that EFCC, most of the times are trying to unearth and then make sure that they are punished. It is issue of the effectiveness of the machinery of justice to ensure that nobody commits a crime. If anyone does anything that is an infraction of the law, let that person be, taken out and be punished. That is the way it goes. I wouldn't like to make that blanket, allegation that, journalists are a problem of this country or lawyers are a problem of this country, without specific reference to any particular incident that I can point out.
So when you say that, some of these issues are investigated, we've also had cases where, members of the judiciary say that these investigations are somewhat the executive using the instrument of itself, to sort of stifle the judiciary. So how do you then balance that?
The independence of the judiciary is very key because access to justice is basic. After the Second World War, countries are actually evaluated by the level of access to justice, how people can have access to the court in order to, ventilate whatever their grievances are. We have issue with our judicial system. Of course, the CJN even made allusion to it on Monday. Who pays the piper, they take the tune. It's important we insist on the financial autonomy of our judiciary. It's important we do that. Yesterday I saw on my Facebook where, a particular governor in Southwest, bought cars and then was distributing these cars to the judges and even to the CJ. And I was saying, and people were hailing him. I said, is it the right thing? Is it for the governor to buy cars for the judges or for that money to be made available to the CJ of that state to be the one to know the kind of car the judges will use? Because he's given an impression as if he's using his personal money now to buy these cars, and they will be clapping for that particular governor. Whereas there is a provision in our law that the budget of the judiciary is of a first-line charge. You take the money and give to the judiciary. They will be in a position to buy their cars. They will be in a position to build their courts. You go to some of the court, which is what the former president was mentioning. You see the magistrate court, it's just dilapidated. It cannot be particular a piece where you can sit down to administer justice.
So if you say,
so we should get judiciary to be in charge of their money, to be in charge of their funds,
if you
to
say
be in charge of buying the cars for themselves.
If you say there's a provision in law that says this is not right, you are the judiciary. We expect you to ensure that this is followed through with.
Yeah,
so why are we having this?
I'm not of the bench, but I know that over time, lawyers have been saying this issue, that issue of independence of the judiciary is key. The moment our judiciary is not independent, they cannot administer justice. And where there is no administration of justice in the proper perspective, there's no way the country can make progress. If our judiciary today is right, there are many issues we get right in this nation, especially with issue of crime. If you go to our magistrate, most criminals go scot-free. After several adjournments, the witnesses will not be willing to come. Even the litigant, the complainant will not come to court. Before you know it, the matter is struck out for want of diligent prosecution. And many criminals are, going along on the road, committing crime and coming back again because the judicial system is not effective. So we must all sit down and look at our judiciary in the real sense of it and see what is actually lacking and see what we can do in order to have an effective judicial system that can make this country to be on the run.
You know, Mr. Ubani, I'll
Yes.
once again try to rephrase that question
Yes.
because, I mean, you have identified these challenges. And for a lot of people, I mean, the judiciary is the last hope for the common man. So if the judiciary is saying we're experiencing this, isn't that ironic?
Well, as I said earlier, it is ironic because they are a bit helpless. In fact, one particular CJ, I think of Edo State, in the last conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, I said, look, who pays the piper that takes the tone? That they are complaining that they go camp in hand because the money is not given to them. And as I said earlier, issue of financial autonomy for the judiciary is key.
But your role is to exercise judicial power. I mean, you have that, as it were, power to ensure that things change.
Can I tell you
from
something?
the bar to the bench.
The executive does not want it to work. Most state governors do not want to grant that financial autonomy to the judiciary, to their state judiciary. And
Why?
that's why they are still buying cars and using the word dash, in quote, to the judges, as if it is their personal money. As I said earlier,
So why
it
about
is not the job of the governor to do that. That's why I'm saying it now. I'm a lawyer.
So why about you
I'm in the
refuse?
private practice. I am not in any government. But I'm saying that this is what is supposed to be, what the law is saying. It's not for the governor to buy cars and give to the judges.
So,
No.
for example, with the cars, why don't they just say, you know what, we don't want the cars?
Well, you can't say because you need the car to work. Yeah, but they are saying, look, they will be grumbling. Why will you be the one to do that? The CJ will be grumbling. Why will you be the one to buy it? Why can't you give me this money to, Because when you buy these cars, you are now, you influence them one way or the other. You want them to, favor you in some certain things. But if the judiciary is really independent, in the sense that the money is given to them, they will be the one to do whatever they want to do with it and all that. They don't owe you any allegiance. So what they want to give any judgment, they give it without any looking at any person, looking at the state government and all that. So what we're saying is that independence of, financial independence is very key. That is one way of guarantee. The issue of infrastructure. We see one of the senior advocates of Nigeria saying that our judges are still using longhand. In 21st century, go to all other countries in the world, even some of the countries in African continent. The judges now are using, computer. They're using electronic system in recording their, evidence.
I understand that we have that in some states where they've tried to
it is
upgrade
because
it.
of lack of, issue of money. The money sometimes, when budgeted, is not even released to the judiciary for them to carry out this function. So it's a whole lot. We need to sit down as a nation,
Right.
really look at our judiciary. And then, what we have today, is it the present kind of judiciary we want for our nation if we really want to make progress and tackle it?
Okay, so let's go back in time, especially because a lot of people said, or say usually, that we're where we are today, rather, because of our experience in the past. Now, you look back at military rule, for
Yes.
example, when, as it were, executive and judicial powers were combined together, and it was with the military, such that they had jurisdiction in executive, as it were, and in the judiciary. So fast forward 2 years after, do you still see this playing out in some way?
Well, even during the military, the issue of judiciary being bold and delivering justice, in favor of the citizens was even better compared to what we're having under democracy. I'm talking about many cases that were decided under under military regime, where the jurisdiction of the court was purportedly ousted, and the court came in forcefully and said, no, you cannot, and defended the rights of the citizens. But what we're having now under democracy is that the rights of the citizens have been violated, and the courts, sort of, is giving some tacit support to the executive in the violation, especially with this issue of ex parte order, that the security agencies will go and obtain behind the accused person. The law says how many hours you should be detained, 24, maximum 48.
Before you're taken to court.
Yes, beautiful. Now, the security agencies will go behind you and obtain a court order ex parte, and then detain you for 40 or for 30 or for whatever days they have asked the court to do without putting you on notice. It is a wrong procedure. Wrong, even worse, is this issue of obtaining these orders and then keeping it in their file. There have been instances where some of my clients have been arrested, and I go to the security agencies and say, look, this man is arrested. They will say he's been detained, by court order. I say, what order? If there is any court order extending the time within which is supposed to be in detention, are you not supposed to serve the defendant that court order? So let him be aware in order to take maybe some measures, either to set it aside. So what they do is that they obtain these orders ex parte and then keep it in their file. And then, you know, when you come, they tell you that you have been detained by court order. And so I'm saying that the court must not in any way, you know, lend any tacit support in this clear violation of citizens' rights, especially with regards to fair hearing. The right of a citizen to fair hearing is a fundamental human right. You don't do that without them knowing. So if there is any order to detain somebody beyond 48 hours, please let there be an immediate order from the court that that order should be served on the defendant. Let him be aware that he is going to stay beyond 48 hours. If that order is not served on him, it's a clear violation of rights.
The question is, so how much pressure are you putting on these security agencies, arms of government, to ensure that they follow through? Because yet again, the common man is looking to you and saying, can you help us? So how much pressure are you putting?
I agree with you. The Nigerian Bar Association, they're doing a lot with regards to that. Some of us also of the civil society, we have been saying it. And I'm also putting up a paper, which I want to present to the National Assembly. I have a friend now who is a senator. I'm working through him in order to look at this state of law with regards to detention of people, violation of right. Freedom of right is very important. As I said earlier, after the Second World War, all nations came together, Universal Declaration of human rights. They felt that any nation today can be evaluated on the ethics and observance of rights of citizens. The moment you fall below it, they cannot have regard for you as a nation. So we must be very interested in freedom because they know that the state has so much instrument. You can use instrument of power to oppress a citizen. But where do you run to when that oppression comes? This is the court. And so that's why the issue of court judiciary is very important. We must get our judicial system to be very effective in justice delivery and ensure that they live up to the expectation in protecting the rights of citizens, in ensuring that when the executive come with all their manipulations and maneuvering, you say, no, we can't accept this. The right of the citizen must not be tampered upon. They will go ahead and ensure that you get you out.
Right.
Add on bail. Now, another thing again is the condition of bail. Most time when you are accused of crime, the law says you are presumed to be innocent. But you go to most of these courts, the kind of bail conditions they give are so onerous that you cannot fulfill it. And the next thing is that you are taken to prison. Sometimes you spend up to 6 months, or even 1 year in order to perfect the bail condition because the condition given to you to come out in order to face your trial is so onerous.
Okay.
So that again is another aspect we really have to look at. As I said earlier, I'm putting up all these things in order to present to the National Assembly, believing that we must, get a country that is, that respects citizens' rights. It's very fundamental.
Speaking of this issue, one example that readily comes to mind, and I'm sure you've been following this, is the case of the convener of Revolution Now protest, Omoyele Sowore. And I think I remember, Daily is reporting that his lawyer said they have, as it were, fulfilled bail conditions.
Yes.
But they're still waiting for him to be released. How do you
I don't want to believe that DSS will want to disobey that court order. I mean, we can make some excuses for some other cases. They say they cannot obey. But with Sowore's matter, I just don't believe that they will disobey it. Maybe there is something that happened because when I called Mr. Femi Falana yesterday, the information was that the DSS person that is in charge of the matter was having a program outside. And so he was not available to look at the condition having been fulfilled. And I believe that today that Sowore will be released. But if the state goes ahead to hold Sowore, contrary to court order, that again becomes bad for the country. It is not something we should do. Issue of respect of court order. Unless they want to appeal, and if they have not appealed, for God's sake, Sowore must be released in accordance with the court order. The moment you mess up court order, when an order has been given by the court, you are destroying the fabric of the country, you are destroying your nation. Nobody will believe your judicial system. Nobody will want to come and invest in your country because what if he comes and then there is a legal dispute and he wins? What is the comfort that judgment will be enforced? Enforceability.
So this has a ripple effect.
It has a ripple effect. The world is watching.
But the question is now, is there a way you can go further to, as it were, enforce this kind of order or this judgment? Is there something more you can do as a judiciary? You
are very correct. Even last night I was thinking about it. Issue of allowing the executive that you have gotten judgment against to enforce your order is becoming practically impossible. What other nations, what did they do? They create another arm of enforcement unit within judiciary that is attached that will ensure enforcement. I have an order. I have a judgment against Nigerian police for 18 million. They shot somebody, a citizen, and the young man went to India and treated himself. and came back and sued Nigerian police through my law firm. We got a judgment for 18 million up to now. For over 3 years now, we've been trying to enforce that judgment to no effect. We can't see any account to garnish and all that. The central bank has not been helpful.
Has Nigerian police responded?
I have been written to the IG. That order has not been obeyed. What of the issue of a man that was dismissed by the Nigerian police, and we went to court, and the court reinstated him? For over 10 years now, Nigerian police have refused to reinstate that young man. I have written to all the IGs, and nobody has obeyed that. Issue of enforceability is key. So if you run to judiciary as the last hope of the common man, and then you get judgment, and you cannot enforce your judgment, you become frustrated. And then what impression do you have about judiciary? And then why will you want to go to that judiciary again if tomorrow you have an issue? So you want to take laws into your hand. So it has a ripple effect. If you don't allow orders of the court to be obeyed, you are creating a state of anarchy. You want people to take laws into their hand rather than relying on judiciary to resolve their issues.
But at least you say that all hope is not lost, that you're going to table this.
No, we need to. Yes, all of us, I'm happy with channels, what you guys are doing every day in order to enlighten the people, in order to enlighten Nigerians, and also to encourage us to do what we're doing to make sure that we have a country that is working for all of us.
Right. So let's talk about the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, which has been a major talking point. So is a challenge with the rule of law in the country, is it with the 1999 Constitution or the general attitude, like you have said, towards the rule of law?
1999 Constitution, I mean, is there with people have been complaining that it didn't come from the people and all that, with all the deficiencies, you have, but it's a workable, instrument that can be used. It has all the provisions of this fundamental human right that I've even told you about. Section 46 says, if you feel that that right has been violated, or there is been a threat of violation, that you should go to any high court within the state of jurisdiction to seek for redress. It's there in the Constitution. So many times you go to seek for that redress. Like one of my clients, it was when that person was detained for 10 days and now sued for the enforcement of a right that I found out that the security agent has already gotten an order to detain her for 14 days. I said, but why was this order not served?
But the order was gotten
yes.
through a lawyer by the security agent. So that's also another part of...
Yes, it is. Yes, that's why we're saying that those lawyers must advise their bosses that when you get an order against a defendant, to detain that person beyond the time allowed by the law, please ensure that you serve. Don't go and put that order in the file. It is wrong because the person doesn't know that you are detaining him beyond the time allowed by the law because there is a court order. So I'm saying that the court also must insist that I am giving you this order to detain this man beyond this hour. You must serve this order to the defender. So let him be aware. He can take a step by probably bringing an application to set aside the order.
So you think that this is not the time, perhaps, to be talking about a constitutional review?
Well, there is ongoing. I mean, the 8th House was, was doing that, and there were so many provisions they tinkered with, which, of course, that the law is not static. Law must reflect reality. There are some things that has happened over time that we need to look at and tinker with our constitution in order to reflect reality, and they did it. But unfortunately, I don't think that process went through. So I believe that this 9th House, we look at our constitution once again. There are so many issues we need to tinker with. But beyond that, people are saying that the constitution itself requires total overhaul. That there must be a new constitution that is made by the people. But for the time being, the one that we are working with, let's ensure that we'll enforce it. Let's ensure that we'll obey it. Just like that order has been made by the court 2 days ago that Showore should be released. There is nothing defective in the Constitution that will make it not to be obeyed. Somebody cannot use Constitution and say the Constitution is defective. That's why I'm not obeying the order. The court has made an order. Please, it's important. So as I said earlier, there must have been a mistake somewhere. Today, I expect Showore to be home. I also expect Agba Jalingo also to be home because for 30-something days now, Agba Jalingo has been in detention. Taken from Lagos here to Cross River. And up to now, he has not been granted bail until yesterday when he was charged. He was arraigned yesterday. I believe that today the court will be able to look at the bail application and make him to go home and face his trial. Whatever they have charged him, the law must take his course. I insist on that. I'm not saying that anyone who is accused of any crime should go scot-free, but it's important that you stay alive to face your criminal charge.
I understand that you just started a new legal year, so we wish you the very best. Especially...
Yes, we just started in Lagos, and I think it's ending this week. By Monday, all the judges will be on seat. You know, Lagos State is center of excellence. When it comes to issue of administration of justice, I think they're one of the best.
Mr. Ubani, we understand there's this conversation about getting more judges, but thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, Mr. Monday Ubani. He is a former second vice president of the NBA, talking about the judiciary in the country. Thank you so much. So we'll go on a quick break now, and when we return, we have more for you. Join us again.